What's an evil company not enough people talk about? Story 1. HCA, Healthcare Corp of America. The largest for-profit hospital system in the country, world probably. Imagine if Walmart owned your hospital. That would be an improvement over HCA. Can confirm, their laboratory practices are awful. They have no standards in releasing accurate laboratory results, and are too cheap to make sure their hospital laboratories have working equipment. Some things need to be kept frozen before use for testing, and instead, they used a styrofoam box with dry ice. Speaking from Florida, I had a TIA last year, went to an HCA facility, also type 2 diabetic. They didn't let me eat or drink for 12 hours, then brought me spaghetti to eat, pancakes for breakfast, and then wondered why I was so sick to my stomach. Were they trying to unalive you? Ignoring diabetic diets is way too common in hospitals, hospital care, and long-term care facilities. I guess hospitals figure, what could one day hurt? If you're just type 2 and don't need insulin, but it's infuriating to me that it isn't taken more seriously for long-term stays. My spouse is type 2 but does require insulin and has a GI issue that often requires hospitalization with a liquid diet. All they give him is sugar. Clear Ensure with sugar, Jello with sugar, juice, etc. It's maddening. Edit. For everyone who wants to bully me over my husband's condition, 1. Clearly sugar isn't the devil. Duh. Maybe people have unique needs that you aren't familiar with. 2. Please promptly find the shortest pier to enjoy the longest walk off of. I remember when the crook who owned TennCare bilked the state for millions. For instance, charging $39 for a Band-Aid. Not the care involved, just the Band-Aid. The whole industry is damaged from insurance all the way to suppliers. We as patients have blindly accepted walking into a medical facility and having people tell us what to do, what we need, and then the bills show up later. Oh well. Imagine going to a car dealership and they pick out a car for you and don't tell you what the cost is. It's ridiculous. It was kind of hilarious going in as a Brit. I was traveling and needed a doctor's appointment. Procedure in the UK? Phone doctor, get an appointment. Sometimes a challenge I will grant. If necessary, get referred to a specialist. Procedure in the USA? Phone insurer, get a list of hospitals, phone hospital first, get told they don't in fact take my insurance. Phone second hospital, get told the same, but only after turning up. Fly to Texas, work, get told by a third hospital, all told to me by my insurer that would be fine. All say they are not in fact fine. Phone insurer from hospital, go berserk on them and inform them that they are in fact paying the bill because I'm not going to a fourth fracking hospital. Get seen. Apparently, I was fine, but my blood pressure was a bit high, so I needed to be medicated. Asked how much the medication would cost. Found out it was expensive. Phoned my GP at home. Told it's not that critical, just sort it when I could, and that the medicine is about $10 a month in the UK. Get called by collections from the fracking hospital because of reasons. When I fracking paid the bill on the way out of the hospital, but apparently they forgot to charge me for something? Tell them to frack off. Phone insurer. Tell them that they did not in fact pay. Tell them that I will now be agitating for my employer to stop using them. Phone hospital, grudgingly pay balance. Claim costs from my employer. I spent at least 10 times more time talking to people about money than the doctor. Why the hell do you guys put up with it? It's a hard thing to tackle and wrangle the industry. It's frustrating. Even my mother-in-law, who works as a nurse exec VP, tells people that unfortunately, you have to be your own advocate when it comes to navigating all this nonsense. And it winds up deterring people from seeking medical help. It's like trying to file your own taxes. We in the U.S. need guidance just to try to avoid becoming penniless. My hope is that my son's generation will see some sort of universal health care here. It's ridiculous. Deterrence is certainly part of the system. If they can get you frustrated enough to delay or skip something doctor-related, that's a win for the insurance company since it's less they risk having to pay for. It's so weird that America treats healthcare as a commodity. Healthy people do things like go to work and contribute to the GDP. It's best to spend money and resources to make sure they can continue to do that. Paying directly for healthcare seems ludicrous. Yes, I realize it's funded through tax dollars in other countries, but that seems like a way better way to do it. I am very fortunate to have a very healthy personage, I guess you could call it. I can count on one hand how many times I've been hospitalized. Getting some sort of grave illness or injury is very scary to me. I just don't think I could afford it. Story 2. Wells Fargo's pretty shady. I've never worked for or banked with them, but they're pretty shady. It's amazing how every couple of years, Wells Fargo gets in trouble for doing something obviously and openly illegal. Then the government says, "Oh, no, person did this. It's just the company. Let's slap a fine on them and move on." I thought corporations are people, only when it benefits them financially. Was a teller and worked at a branch with a high volume of private banking clients, so the West Coast president often visited. I was there during the '08 crash. Watched high-level execs commend the branch manager for doing everything in her power to make sure bankers and tellers made their daily goals. They encouraged opening accounts without full transparency of fees or requirements. I learned Spanish to keep up with sales because the pressure was so high. I was a platinum teller. I made the daily wow. I consistently and ethically hit my sales goals, making gold 80% of the time I was there. I left the job because our branch manager was saying it wasn't enough. I needed to max out sales. She wasn't going to be paid if we didn't continue to sell even though we hit our caps. She was sweet but ruthless, and the pressure was too much. I finally said yes on the 5th try after a customer consistently tried to poach me to his business because I was fed up. It was demoralizing listening to bankers tell us to sell credit cards to customers who already had their lines of credit maxed out because they could use the card for advances. I completely helped someone pay their mortgage with quarters. Due to the time period, I was also there during the Wachovia merger, and their customers hated us. We weren't as easy to do business with. Wells Fargo had all these big bank rules and policies that weren't customer-friendly. I watched a lady damn near lose her house because the mortgage paperwork got lost during the merger, and her Wachovia loan officer was offered severance, and no one in Wells Fargo would help her. I closed my team bank account when I left and never looked back. They suck. You know those old movies or TV shows where you had the hillbilly or someone who would hide their money under the bed? That doesn't seem so far-fetched now, especially with the way banks are acting now. It's almost logical. Story 3. Elsevier. I think I'm pronouncing that right. Established a near monopoly of academic journals. Charge scientists to publish in them in the thousands and charge the public to read them. Subscription also in the thousands. Convince other scientists to review the scientific content for free, exploiting younger scientists who need to build their CV, basically putting a paywall on the results of government tax dollar-funded research. Don't get me started on how major universities deal with STEM PhD students. Bringing people in as students, making them work 40-plus hours a week in a lab, purposefully misclassify them as students when they're really workers, apply for large government grants using data generated by these students, make them do all the grading for the underclass, and then complain when the students are begging for $40K a year. Instead, tell them they're lucky that as students, they don't have to pay tuition to be there. At the end of 5 to 7 years of this treatment, they'll give you a PhD. Scam. A tip for those who need a paper? If the author's contact information is listed, contact them and ask if they're willing to send the paper. Most researchers are more than happy to oblige, since they don't benefit from you buying from the journal anyway. I was about to comment saying the same thing. I have a few papers under my belt, and it's a real delight when someone is interested enough to ask me for the full text. It's a great way to establish connections in your field. And I get to feel good that a grand total of 11 people read the thing I spent a year and a half working on. It's also a good idea to get yourself a ResearchGate profile. Very easy to find full texts and interact with the researchers. You know those people that say the government is after you and studies can lie and everything, and that's the reason why we had people denying that vaccines and masks work? It's stuff like this, everyone trying to profit off of knowledge. Stuff like that. Story 4. DuPont. Watched Dark Waters yesterday. What the hell? Their controversy section in Wikipedia is long enough to be a novel. It's horrible, that company. Company? Is that a combination of vomit and company? If I was a fraction as smart as you, yes. Unfortunately, it was just a typo, but I like where your head's at. For anyone who hasn't heard of what DuPont did to Parkersburg, here's one of the articles that the movie references. It's very hard to avoid their products since they have a finger in almost everything. They merged with Dow and have lots of brands under their umbrella. Tyvek house wrap, Corian solid surface counters, Kevlar, etc. DuPont just for their air being a child violator and not getting prison time. Say his name. Robert H. Richards IV. Child violator. While we're at it, shout out to Judge Jan Jordan for letting him off with a suspended sentence because he would not fare well in prison. The judge didn't say that. It was in her notes after having been said by the defense attorney. The prosecutor specifically requested an S-offender treatment program. Prosecutor Renee Hribnak said at the hearing that the state would usually seek jail time, but she believed an S-offender treatment program in Massachusetts was a viable alternative to jail. Quote, "The first option that the state would present is that this jail time will be suspended for completion of that program, followed by a lengthy period of probation," unquote, Hribnak said. If the court is not inclined to send him to the Massachusetts program, then the state would be asking for some period of jail that the court would feel would be appropriate. Judge Jordan expressed some reluctance about the sentence. The transcript indicates. "I have concerns about this," Jordan told Richards at the hearing, "because arguably you should be at level 5 prison for what you did, and I hope you understand the gravity of what you did." Story 5. Brookdale. The senior care/assisted living megacorp. Senior care in the U.S. is fracking terrifying, and they're at the center of it. Abuse, neglect, grifting survivors into estate-locking deals. Brookdale is evil, and most of us will have to deal with them or someone like them as we're entering our most vulnerable adult years. As someone who works in senior living, I can confirm this. Brookdale is the largest senior living housing company in the country, and a lot of the time, they're poaching from others and offering bottom-rate apartments and then jacking it up about $1,000 each year. Despicable. Got any sweet tips for those of us most likely perishing alone someday? Live-in caregivers and hired caregiving can be more affordable than living in a facility. Crazy expensive either way. If you're in the U.S., a family member/friend/other caregiver can be compensated through IHSS for providing you care. Each individual is assessed and approved for a certain number of hours each week. If you do end up in a facility, being a patient of an outside agency that routinely visits, home health or hospice, tends to ensure you get slightly better care than other residents. You get care from the outside nurses when they visit, and the facility staff take better care of you because they don't want to get in trouble or caught being negligent. I work for assisted living in the Midwest U.S. Our residents pay $5,000 plus a month to live there. The nursing home that's adjacent to us is at minimum $10,000 a month. Getting old is expensive. I'm pushing myself off the Grand Canyon before I pay someone $10K a month. Story 6. Pearson VUE. Did none of you go to college and shell out way too much money? Or take a standardized test? All the stories of people taking exams at home and the proctor canceling for stupid reasons then people not being able to get their money back? Those exams are expensive. The proctoring software flagged me as cheating because I kept obscuring my face. I was wiping away tears because the software didn't work. I had access to part 1 of my test, but not part 2. By the time I got access, I had 30 minutes to sit a 2-hour exam. If I failed, I would have been $1,000 out of pocket and 3 months behind my graduation goal. The teacher reviewed it and everything turned out okay, but for a good few days I thought I had hit a real setback. Is this the same parent company that publishes Pearson textbooks? If so, definitely an evil corporation. As textbooks weren't enough of a waste of money for many college classes, they've been publishing these loose-leaf textbooks that are difficult or impossible to resell to get some of your money back, and they run an online homework portal that you have to pay extra for to unlock a key. Basically, it's an additional paywall just to be able to do homework and quizzes for a class you're already paying tuition for. I mean, isn't that just the ultimate in gatekeeping information? You look at these things and read and hear these things and wonder how they can be illegal, and then you realize America seems to allow for people to privatize public services. It's disgusting.
Please like and subscribe if you made it this far. I hope you'll enjoy the rest of the video and have a wonderful day.
Story 7. Herbalife. Absolute trash scam ruining people's lives. This is an unbelievably true story. I worked as a labor and delivery nurse for 16 years. Had a young couple who swore Herbalife was the reason she got pregnant because it made her so healthy. She thought she was getting strong abdominal muscles from the supplements, but turned out that was a baby bump instead. I wish it stopped there, but it gets worse. After a day of attempting to breastfeed her newborn, she decided it wasn't working. Okay, no big deal. We discussed formula options. Upon their own review of the infant formula ingredients, they decided Herbalife shakes contain much better ingredients and nutritional value for their 1-day-old. Everyone on staff, including their obstetrician and 2 separate pediatricians, told them, absolutely do not feed these to your infant. It was like talking to a brick wall. I'm certain after they were discharged that the poor baby was given Herbalife shakes and got horribly ill. I still think about those dummies almost 10 years later. Thankfully, this is illegal, and healthcare workers are well within our rights to hospitalize this child, and then either place them in foster care or make sure parents feed them formula. And their livers and kidneys. Woman my mom worked for lost a ton of weight with Herbalife, started up a shop selling it, then ended up in the hospital with heart failure. Completely decimating the Hispanic community, too. Just sad about the exploitation. Story 8. Chiquita. Way too low here. Toppled a fracking government, as did Dole. Let's go ahead and throw Banana Republic in there for the association. Yep. The name Banana Republic is literally named after the coups that Chiquita enacted in South and Central America. Great book. Fun fact, Chiquita caused the Bay of Pigs invasion. The brother of the Chiquita Company's founder was head of the CIA at the time, and they'd toppled enough governments that they felt confident to expand to Cuba. Whoops! My simple Goodreads review? A fascinating history lesson about the rise and tyrannical practices of the now Chiquita Banana Company. What began as an entrepreneur building railroads through Central America slowly evolved into massive land and government control, and finally to CIA-backed coups and the failed Bay of Pigs invasion. From innocuous beginnings to fearsome global influence, Chapman weaves a tale that is never dull and reveals the terrifying power of a banana company to overthrow multiple governments. With historical glimpses into periods such as McCarthyism, the building of the Panama Canal, Watergate, Fidel Castro's takeover of Cuba, and war in the Middle East, we can see how the tendrils of the octopus stretch far wider than one would expect of a simple yellow fruit. Story 9. Tyson Foods, Cargill, National Beef Packing Company, and JBS. Even if you don't give a care about animals, they're pretty awful to the people who work at their slaughterhouses. And those 4 are like 85% of the market. So they also greatly exploit the farmers who raise animals for them. Cargill is a multi-billion-dollar company responsible for so many of our biggest issues today. From palm oil to deforestation to factory farming to child slavery, and nobody's even heard of them. The World for Sale, Money, Power, and the Traders Who Barter the Earth's Resources is a must-read. Just finished it. Commodity traders have absolutely zero morals. Not enough people know that the repealing of child labor laws was more to get children into slaughterhouses rather than ice cream parlors. The whole thing is a smokescreen so the meatpacking industry can have an easier time hiring undocumented/migrant kids. Story 10. Johnson & Johnson knew they had asbestos in their baby powder and still sold their products, causing countless cases of ovarian cancer and mesothelioma, and has fought tooth and nail to not pay out by putting its asbestos liabilities in a new subsidy and promptly declaring it bankrupt, despite J&J being a hugely profitable company. Thankfully, that flagrant abuse of the bankruptcy system just got rejected by the courts. They actually split into two companies to avoid liability, abusing Texas corporation laws to create one company that holds the talc-related liabilities and another that holds non-talc assets and liabilities. The new company with the talc-related liabilities is the one that filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection. Just pure evil. Corporations are people. When I distributed poison and caused cancer and unaliving, I split into two people, the bad one and the good one. Then the bad one took all the blame and unalived himself, and I'm scot-free. Story 11. PG&E. They burned down California several times, unaliving a number of our citizens here. Then, having the audacity to play money games with the families of the deceased or those who've lost homes. Curse 'em. The wonderful company is also unaliving California, and nobody talks about it at all. Nobody should drink Fiji water, palm juice, California pistachios, etc. There's a great dollop about the whole situation for anyone who likes podcasts. Yeah, I listened to that episode in total shock. There really needs to be laws about mass agriculture not using natural resources to grow non-native plant species. Oh, and then using frack water to grow during the drought is pretty fracking disgusting. The Dollop PG&E episode is a rough listen as well. Story 12. De Beers, the largest diamond company in the world, has been exploiting workers in the world's poorest nations for 135 years. They also control diamond prices. Stop buying diamonds, people. It's literally just carbon. Pick a different stone. Sincerely, someone who worked with gemstones. They're not even that rare. De Beers keeps so many diamonds locked in vaults so they can control the rarity. We can manufacture diamonds of better quality anyway, with nearly 100% less human exploitation and suffering. If my fancy purchase doesn't have human suffering built into it, is it really fancy? Story 13. Luxottica. Pretty much a monopoly on the vision care and product market. They own just about all fashion eyewear and eye care outlets, hence the ridiculous prices. Use Zenni. I went to LensCrafters. They said $600 for new glasses, but I got them for $20 at Zenni. I used to have iMed insurance. iMed is Luxottica. LensCrafters, who's also Luxottica, said that with insurance, my glasses would only cost $130. So Luxottica is taking money out of my pocket with the left hand and giving it to my right hand so that the right hand can still take $130 out of my pocket and tell me that's a deal. I got the same glasses at Zenni for $11 without insurance. The shipping brought it up to $23, but still. Also, for most people, your basic vision exam is covered by your health insurance. Story 14. Noah Pharma, formerly known as Purdue Pharma. They are the main character of the opioid crisis. Purdue. Purdue seems so fitting, though. Purdue, poop storm, doo-doo-doo-doo-doo-doo-doo-doo-doo. Working closely in the pharmaceutical business, it's always very funny to me when we get notifications of corporate name changes. They usually come soon after some major PR disaster. You mean the Sackler family owned Purdue Pharma? Having read Empire of Pain can confirm it's a company run by douchebags. Story 15. The Susan G. Komen Foundation. The reason pink is everywhere for breast cancer awareness is a crooked organization that not only pockets the majority of the incoming donations, but actively restricts other cancer research fundraising ventures. I believe they spend more money suing other charities than on cancer awareness, which is technically what they do because no one has ever heard of cancer. I always thought it was weird that their campaign was towards awareness instead of research or work towards a cure or better treatment. I think we're all well aware of breast cancer at this point. Story 16. This is probably a personal bias, but United Healthcare. Any health insurance company, really. But this all stems from the United States healthcare system. Cigna makes me miss UHC. I'll take a disorganized corp any day over one that'll happily reject claims. Story 17. Any for-profit health insurance company has plenty of blood on its hands, charging people out the butt only for non-doctors to decide what care is or isn't medically necessary to cover. For-profit unaliving panels. Story 18. Value Village. They trick people into thinking they're a non-profit, take donations that could be going to people who need them, and charge insane prices.
Please leave your story in the comments. I would love to make a video on them in the future. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe.